You ready? Okay. I think it's on.
Okay. Thanks for adjourning. Okay, let's call this meeting of the Landfill Committee to order at 9:01.
Turn your.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
All right, let's call this Landfill meeting to order at 9:01 a.m. And we do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
There's a button just next time. You can just click that one.
It's not showing. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, Sandy, can we get a roll call, please? Vicky? Here. Brooks? Fuller? Logan?
Present.
Newquist?
Here.
Pretzel? Dean Schlein?
We're good.
Form.
Did you go leave Richmond?
If we add Leader Richmond again, Leader Richmond.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. And then I would look to approve the minutes from the Landfill Committee of August 12th, 2025.
Motion.
Second, Logan.
Motion Newquist, second Logan. Vicky? Yes. Logan?
Yes.
Newquist?
Yes.
And Richmond?
Yes.
Motion carries. Perfect. Motion carries. Okay. Then we are going to do public comment. We put public comment up earlier in the agenda so that people can speak before we vote on things. Do we have any public comment? Any public comment? Okay. Moving on to old business. Any old business?
Nope.
All right, moving on to new business. Our new business is a presentation by Mr. Gallen from Geologic Consultants, and I will turn that over to him. Perfect.
Morning.
Good morning.
For having me back. Noticed that my presentation in the packet was a little garbled up, so I provided a cleaner version here for that thing. So anyway, we'll get right into it. The reason that we're here today, or at least the reason I'm here today, is to provide you all with an update on where we're at with the Landfill expansion development project. So I hope you're not tired of hydrogeology because we've got one more meeting full of that. If we can go to the next slide, please. So since our last meeting, we have basically finished the site investigation. So those activities included a piezometer survey, preparing boring logs and as-built diagrams, collecting groundwater levels, and completing the slug testing. So we'll walk through each of these. The piezometer survey is just having a survey company come out, and each one of the new piezometers that we installed, they get an XY lat long and then an elevation, which we can then use when we measure water levels. The subsurface water levels don't necessarily, they're not the same as the ground surface levels. So by having that elevation on the top of the pipe, it allows us to then come up with we call it a potentiometric surface or a map of the water table or of the aquifer. So we can go to the next slide. The image on the left there is a boring log. So this is a digitized version of what we collect out in the field. We have a field geologist out there that takes notes. Every sample that comes up, he logs it, colored. It's gray, silty clay, it's a trace sand, gravel, whatever it may be, and a low plasticity, moist. And for each interval, we continuously sample all the way down, and then that gets put onto this boring log. We take those rough field notes, we put them into a nice typed up version. So page has 20 feet, and it's got also information on the type of equipment that was used to drill, the recovery, each interval. You can see there, there's a column there for water content. That actually comes from the laboratory, so we can take that from the lab and we had it on the boring log. We list the unconfined compressive strength, which is a field test that we do with called a pocket penetrometer. It's just a measure of soil strength as we go. So anyway, that's all provided on the boring logs. On the right there, that's an as-built diagram. So that is a record of how each piezometer that we installed was constructed on the field, what that was drilled to, where's the screen at, how long is the screen, what type and thickness of seal was used, and so on. And so we have one of those for each of the piezometers we installed. And ultimately, when we get to the point where we're going to submit an application for local siting approval, all of these forms and others will be provided in the appendix to that application. So this is just a couple of examples of things that we've been working on, our field data, thinking about form. Next slide, please. Before I talk about some of the other things that we've done here, I wanted to just do a little Aquifer 101. What is an aquifer? I think we all probably have a vision in our head about what that is, but it's according to the hydrogeologic textbooks, it is a body of permeable rock sediment or soil that stores and transmits groundwater. So essentially, it's just an underground layer that the water can accumulate in sufficient quantities to be able to withdraw them from a well for use, domestic use, or industrial use. They have the water is held in pore spaces. So you can picture a sand, a beach, each one of those sand grains, and between those grains is where the water is held. So different geologic materials are able to hold different quantities of water. So sand is very permeable. There's a lot of water that can be held in a sand. Whereas if you look at a material like clay, it's very microscopic pores, and they're not very well connected. It's that connectivity of the pores that really is what allows water to move within different units. So different units have different abilities to move water. If we can go to the next slide. How does water move in an aquifer? This is getting a little technical, but it moves under Darcy's law, which is flow equals KIA. K being hydraulic conductivity. The I is the hydraulic gradient, or the slope of the groundwater table, and A is the area. I'm mostly focused, I'll describe why later, but the K and the I. So K being the hydraulic conductivity is the ability for that unit to move water. Water in the subsurface moves very much like it does on the surface, so it flows downhill. So more from areas of high head to low head, and so that's where the I comes in. That is the slope of how steep that water surface is. Go to the next slide, please. Yes.
What's the water moving toward on the low end? Is it toward a cavity or a?
Generally not. It's just moving within the aquifer.
Right.
So it's water is similar to other types of materials or fluids, that it's always trying to move from areas of high potential to low potential, like weather system, high pressure, low pressure, or cold. It's just always trying to find its, it's
The lowest one.
I should add, so the way that water gets into the aquifer is to recharge. So rainwater falls on the surface, it flows to a point where it can percolate down into that aquifer. Sometimes it can find a spot where it can get easily into the aquifer, and maybe in a lake or a river, depending on what underlies that lake. But other times it can take tens of thousands of years. So it's just it moves very, very slowly. Why does it matter? Understanding how water flows helps predict where potential contaminants would go over time, and it helps us to build a subsurface groundwater model. This is something that we're going to prepare for the siting application. It's something that's required by the IEPA when we get to that point of the project, but it's something that we will do anyway, because what it does is it allows us to take design and marry it with the site-specific geology, and then test that design in this specific geology to make sure that it's going to be protective of the public health, safety, and welfare. So I talked a little bit about the water level measurements and how we would use that to come up with a tensiometric head surface of the water within that aquifer. That's the I in that equation. The K being the hydraulic conductivity, we can determine in a couple of different ways. We can do it in the field using slug tests, or we can obtain it in the laboratory using permeameter tests. In this case, we've done both. If we can go to the next slide. I mentioned slug testing, I think, at least in the last meeting, and I think maybe even before that, but this is a little bit more about what a slug test is. It is a way for us to measure that how easily water can move within the screen zone of those piezometers. So if you look on the right, that's a schematic of a well, and there's a horizontal darker blue line there just representing the water surface or the potentiometric surface. And what we do is we'll lower down a pressure transducer, and that is something that can measure the water level within that well. And then by removing a slug of water, volume of water, or by adding a volume of water, we can measure how long so say we remove a volume of water, what we'll do is lower that level within the well, and then we can measure the rate at which it recovers back to equilibrium. And then we can do the same thing by adding a solid slug or a volume of water, which would raise that level within the well, and we can measure the rate at which it falls back down to equilibrium. And then there are some equations we can apply using the well geometry and aquifer thickness to convert that into a hydraulic conductivity. And those are, that hydraulic conductivity is a value that goes into that groundwater impact assessment model. Yes.
So when you talk about, I'm sorry, I forgot. So when you talk about horizontal hydraulic conductivity, are you literally talking about, when water seeps in and like pulls out essentially?
What we're looking at is a unit in the subsurface. Let's just pretend it's the same. With the same unit down at some elevation in the subsurface. What we're measuring is the ability for that unit to transmit water.
Okay.
And then we can use that with that slope of the groundwater table and porosity. We can come up with a seepage velocity, or how fast that water is moving within that unit.
Got it. And a unit is however you define it. I'm assuming in this case it's the landfill.
We're looking at the whole area below the.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. I just have a series of pictures here. This is a picture I think we've seen before. This is a well nest. So this is a location where we have two piezometers that are screened in different intervals within the subsurface. So one may be, these two particular, I don't recall, but one may be in a discontinuous sand seam within the till, and the other may be down in the upper bedrock. And it's just, we can do that by sealing those zones. And then there are different testing that we can do on each of those wells to look specifically at those two different zones. Those yellow things are just bollards retired from the farm equipment out there. So it's a series of pictures here. This is a field geologist setting up a slug test, getting his computer ready. Next slide. Here we're taking an initial water level, so we have a baseline of where that water surface is within that piezometer. Here we are lowering the pressure transducer down into the well, so we'll get hooked up to the computer then and allow us to monitor that level as it moves. Just equilibrating. Once you put that transducer down there, it does displace some water, so we wait until it gets exactly back to its natural state. This is inserting a baler. So this is about 3 or 4 feet long plastic tube. It has a little check valve on the bottom, so we'll lower that in with a rope, and then let it go down below the water, and then we pull it out. The check valve closes and it pulls out that volume of water. And that's how. What that does is it lowers the water in the well, and we can measure it coming back up to equilibrium. just another picture there pulling the baler out, I think. Watching the computer to make sure we got a good test. Still looking. That's basically how a slug test is done. So we've, see later, I said we're still need to go break down that data, but since we've submitted the packet, to all of you, we have fully analyzed all those slug tests, stabilized all the data, and it's really as we expected it to be. We have a fairly highly permeable area in upper bedrock. That is because of the weathered nature of the rocks, fractures that exist in that upper weathered portion. The clay is very tight. The lower bedrock is very tight, and that just really is to be anticipated.
Can I ask, how long does it take to cover the thermometer zone?
And let's just say it's a typical location. It's probably a few days for all the continuous sampling. And then I would say another day or so to get the drill tooling removed and well down, get all the sand pack and the seal and everything in there. So about 4 days total per location.
Thank you.
And we're going to put it as well.
Sure.
Let's go back one slide, please. This is I talked about the field testing there. So this is the lab testing that you've seen the picture. I think we've seen both of these pictures, but it's basically taking those Shelby tubes, those are undisturbed samples, in situ soil. We can take them to the lab, put them in a permeameter, which is a cylindrical testing device, and then introduce water under controlled conditions and come up with a permeability. In the lab, those are vertical values. Those slug tests that we do on the field are horizontal values, and we can look at the variance between those and do some correlations. All helps us with our modeling inputs. Next slide. Thank you. So what do these tests tell us? Basically, how fast groundwater is moving horizontally and vertically. So we go to do that model. We input the K value, the I value, it will be porosity, and it's basically the advective flow for actually how fast the water is moving. In addition to that, there are a couple other concepts. One being dispersion. Dispersion is kind of a spreading of the water or mixing. If there were contaminants in the water, just the very nature of that water moving through the pore spaces of different sizes speeds up and slows down that water, and it becomes some spreading. It's kind of like if you take your thumb and stick it over a garden hose, how the water speeds up. It's because there's a smaller orifice for the water to go through, so it speeds up, and that's kind of what's happening in the subsurface. So we can take the advective flow and we can estimate dispersion based on that. And then we also have to consider diffusion. Diffusion is a chemical mixing, chemicals moving from high concentration to low concentration. Again, similar to if you took a still glass of water and put food coloring in there, it would eventually equal out within that glass. So these are all things that we consider, put into the model, and I'm sure we'll have a whole meeting or so to talk about that modeling once we have it all prepared.
Look forward to that.
Move on to the next slide, please. It's getting close. So we're continuing to collect, compile, and analyze data. Really, at this point, it's just the water levels are going to be out there again this week, I believe, taking out around levels. We are creating cross sections and maps and groundwater flow maps, thickness maps. We have some drafts of some of these maps already, so we just continue to push those forward. And we're also advancing the design. So I'm hopeful that by the next time we meet, I will be able to at least show you some preliminary design drawings. We have developed some leachate collection system grades and some final cover grades. The design is actually an iterative process. So once we come up with the design, we have to look at stormwater, make sure it still works. We have to look at slope stability, make sure it still works. And if we have to go back and make tweaks, we do. And that's the process that we're in right now. But I think by the next time we meet, I will at least be able to give you some glimpses of where we're at. I can tell you, as far as the airspace estimates that we have are very similar to what we had originally provided when we did our concepts.
Yes.
I know it's way too early and you don't have a definitive answer to this yet, but so far with the testing, have you run into anything that would make you think the expansion on the, existing footprint isn't viable?
No.
Good, thank you.
So certainly, vertical expansion is possible. We've been spending most of our efforts on the horizontal portion because that's the kind of the unknown, the challenging. And we don't have an existing design to look at. We have to develop that, but we do know that vertical expansion is possible. The horizontal expansion is also possible, but if you recall, you have some issues there with there's a soil pile that will have to be removed, and that is still yet to been the loop is not been closed on those issues.
Okay, thank you.
So I believe it was Ms. Hickey that asked last time I was here, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but where we were at our schedule, and if we were behind schedule or ahead of schedule, and thought the best thing to do was to just put up this is the schedule that we had presented back in February, and we are, I would say on bullet 3 or 4 of that. So I would actually say we're ahead of schedule. And I put a note up bottom there saying that some of these things we do currently, which is basically how we've been proceeding. Obviously, we have identified the property. We have a concept design. Beyond that, we've done the site investigation, and we're continuing to be landfill committee. So I think we're in very good shape and still very much on track for our original schedule. You're welcome. So with that, I guess if there are any more questions that we had.
I have a quick question. The contaminants that you're talking about, what are the common ones that you're looking for?
We're not looking for contaminants so much as what the state makes us do is they make us come up with a design and then assume that it's leaking, and they make us look at basically an arbitrary boundary, 100 feet from the waste boundary at 100 years after closure, and figure out what the concentration of leachate will be in the aquifer. So we look at all the constituents that are typically found in landfill leachate. And in this instance, what we probably will do is take the specific leachate from very existing one and use that to apply to our home.
Okay.
So it's they make us assume it's leaking. They make us assume it's leaking on day one, and we build in a lot of other conservative assumptions. That's that.
Sounds like a lot.
It is a lot.
Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you. So I appreciate the time on that, and thank you for the update. So do you have like a recurring schedule when you come out for these updates, or I'm sorry, I haven't sat in on it. I've just been in the audience before, so
We've been trying to come every month. I guess and we're happy to come every month. Some months we're going to have more to present than others.
okay.
I think we feel like we probably have something to show you again next month.
Okay.
And then it might be a little bit of time when we're once we have a design that we're kind of settled on moving forward. There's just a lot of engineering that goes into that. That's not real needs, pipe crushing calculations and leachate transmissivity of the leachate collection system, slope stability, settlement, make sure that the landfill settles and our pipes don't blow the wrong way, that kind of thing. So
The only thing I do is I add another slide up there with some of the words that I don't understand. I probably would understand. That would be helpful. I see that Sherry and Joe are both here. I didn't know, did you guys have anything else to add to that? I mean, I think they give us very good comprehensive presentation. That's very good. Yeah. Sure. Practice might be true. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Fallon, for being as available to us as you are. Mr. Harkey and I took a trip up to Mr. Fallon's new office in St. Charles, and I have to say, he probably packs a lunch to come down here. It's a good trip, but I really appreciate
I don't
you.
know as far as Chuck. See, Elston is coming from Rockford.
Oh, that is a premiere. All right, thank you very much. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to the next time we meet.
Great afternoon.
You
Thanks.
too. Okay, and then Mr. Harkey, we're going to talk about a follow-up on the litter issue. Let's see.
Good morning. Dave Markey, Director of the Recycling Department Energy Division within the Land Use Department. Today I have here with me, I've invited Mr. Chuck Helston, who is with Intel and Culberson, also Special Assistant to the State's Attorney's Office. We have brought the counties and your concerns to our landfill operator, WMR Waste Management. They've been very receptive and responsive to our concerns. And Chuck has been dialoguing for the most part with them, and is here to report on that to you today.
Good morning.
Thank you. As Dave said, we took the concerns that were raised initially by Mr. Butler and Mr. Van Dyne, and then later by Mr. Richmond seriously, and gave those to Waste Management. The ones that were raised, as I recall first, pertain to Old River Road from the exit on I-55 South to Route 53. That was based on also some of the observations that Mr. Hartke had and the surveillance he was doing, that the lion's share of traffic, and then in turn, ergo the lion's share of the litter probably was being visited upon Old River Road. Okay, so that one was addressed first. Waste Management got back to me about a week ago, and they took on Old River Road first. And I said, look at these closely. Don't give us something in haste that we have to come back and revisit. We want to do it right the first time. I think they did. They came back to me, and what they have said on Old River Road is they will inspect once a week, and they will pick up every 2 weeks, which is that's a pretty ambitious schedule. They started, I believe, Friday. Now, I told Waste Management, as far as inspection, I said, that's your deal. I said, but when you start to pick up waste, please let the land use know. So after you're done, they can immediately go out there and see how good a job your contractor has done. Waste Management said, of course, we'll let Mr. Hartke and Mr. Dubois know exactly when we're done, so they can go out there, or they can send someone else in the department, staff in the department, to look at it. So I told them Mr. Richmond's concerns were no less strident than Mr. Van Dyne's and Mr. Butler's. Okay, and now I may have misinterpreted your comments, Mr. Richmond, but I understood your comments to go to traffic that comes not from the west and approaches the landfill, but from the east towards the landfill. Is that correct?
Everything that's around it, yes.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Since we've addressed over Old River Road, I took that leaves, based upon the comments that you gave us before, that leaves coming from the east. Okay. Now, so that's where we are now. They would like some more information. That's why I'm glad you're here, Mr. Richmond, because I asked Mr. Hartke to prepare an aerial overhead of the east approach, okay, the primary east approach, based upon the surveillance he's been doing the last 2 or 3 months, because that tells us where the preponderance of the traffic comes from the east. Okay, I'm sorry I only have one of these, but I'm going to give it to Mr. Richmond since he raised the. I'm not trying to embarrass you, Mr. Richmond.
Listen,
Mr. Richmond, can you turn your mic on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just thought maybe you had received complaints and,
No,
okay,
I just look at things from a perspective of, we have a garbage dump and there's garbage all around it. And if you go several miles either direction, there's less garbage. So the root cause has to be something to do with the garbage dump. Traffic coming in, traffic coming out, blowing outside the garbage, outside the landfill.
that's very succinct. That's very practical and very succinct. Let me use this then as, I'm going to use the board up here simply as an example of what we're looking at. I'm coming from the east, okay?
What are we doing?
Right. Imagine this,
Pick up the,
okay?
There you go, Mr. Muller.
Imagine this is Peatone Road,
Okay,
okay, 25. Imagine this is 53, okay? Imagine up there is Arsenal Road, South Arsenal Road, okay? And then you go in on Prairie View Road to the landfill, okay? Now, what we've seen for all of you, okay, what we've seen, it seems that traffic comes from the east, which is logical. There's the old saying, as Mr. Moose and I could tell you, the garbage truck intuitively knows the shortest route to the landfill. It's funny how that truck knows, you know, it has a brain. Okay, so what happens is, assume way far east, this is Route 45, okay? By the way, most of the traffic coming from 55 is coming down from other parts of Chicago because it's easier to just come down 355 to 55. It's very easy, okay? This is traffic, predominantly waste traffic from the south suburbs, okay? So it comes down 45. Then it comes to Peatone Road, okay? Now, what happens then is part of it goes up Old Chicago Road, okay? Part of it goes up Riley Road, okay? Some of it, but not much, comes all the way out here to the junction of Peatone Road and 53, okay? There are different reasons. Yeah, everybody, yeah, you would think, logic would tell you, well, wait a minute, just take Peatone Road, it's a straight shot down here. Turn right and go up there. But I think they do it for different reasons. There are different reasons that every trucker has for taking those routes, even though they're basically the same distance, you know, however you do it, it's a square, you know, or half a square. What we need, what Waste Management has said, to their credit, they said, where are the biggest spots of waste that you're seeing? I told them what we saw. I provided that in detail to them and said, where are the biggest areas of waste that you've seen? You know, because we want to make sure we hit those. Because if you go out here and come up Old Chicago and up and in, that's 7.1 miles. That's a long for control. But if it's necessary, as Mr. Richmond says, if the landfill is causing the problem, they got to address it. Okay, you come to Riley and go up, it's a lot shorter. Okay. Dealing with 2 or 3 or 4 alternative approaches is a big task. I'm not feeling sorry for Waste Management. We're not having any bad ones, okay? What I'm concerned about is eliminating the problem. And Mr. Hartke and I have talked about this, you know, and Mr. Jaballo. It's eliminating the problem in the fastest and most practical way to eliminate the problem. Mr. Hartke had a really good idea that Mr. Moose and I have seen in our many decades of doing this. We haven't seen it invoked in a while, which is, what about one route? Just one route that they have to take whether it's Peatone to Old Chicago, probably not Riley because Riley's a more rural road, or just Peatone straight to 53, up 53. It's an easy right. It's a right here. There aren't any lefts. It's all rights here. Take a right, and then go in. Okay.
That's my favorite way to drive. No left turns.
But then you know where the waste is going to be. You know where the violators are going to be. You know if you need to bring out the sheriff's department or the state police to monitor. You know where to. Okay. Otherwise, you're guessing. You're guessing as to where the waste is going to be. You're guessing as to where the violators are going to be. I think it's a good idea. You know, we have a pretty fair amount of latitude under the host agreement as to what we can invoke if there's a litter problem. Also, I didn't look at the siting conditions in the 90s when Mr. Moose and I were involved, and we made suggestions as to whether we asked them for primary routes and whether they're following. Didn't have time, but I'm going to look at that because there may be some special conditions that were imposed on siting that we could also impose. The one concern I have, and I don't know, Mr. Moose or Mr. Fallon, you weigh in, Mr. Moose and I have been doing this too long, is if you take Peatone to 53, there's a lot more north-south frequency of traffic on 53 than there is on Old Chicago Road. That's more of, as they say, a stroll in the country where you just turn right, go up a country road, hit Arsenal, and come in. Again, the dedicated route may be the best thing. What concerns me is we have to do what's called a gap study here to see how many gaps there are. You get traffic engineers to see how many gaps there are so that you don't have trucks backing up. My concern is trucks backing up on Peatone Road if they can't, if there's not enough gaps in north-south traffic. So that's where we stand right now. I'll open it up for comments from the committee, but Waste Management has said we stand ready to have a proposal on this back to you, just like we had a proposal, a pretty good one, that they've invoked on North River Road. But again, there's a big difference between 7.1 or 7.2 miles and 3.1 if the majority, and not arguing their case, but we want to focus in on where the problem is. And if the problem is closer rather than farther away, the distance that they have to address is a lot less. Why is that important? To save them money? Page 1. I don't care about that. Okay. It allows them to focus on the problem. It's like any other problem, anything that Mr. Fallon and Mr. Moose have going forward with development. If you can focus on the problem, it gets done a lot quicker and better.
Sure, instead of like
so that,
to find the trash.
yeah. So that's where we are now. I'll open it up for comments. I'll be dialoguing with Waste. I told them I would like to get a proposal so we put the entire matter to bed and all the concerns that have been raised by the various committee members. I'd like to get them all, report back with a solution for this at the November meeting. So
Great. I believe Member Nicholas has a question.
Thank you. I like the idea of designating a specific route. I think it does solve, a lot of the oversight, I guess, if you will, issues. But I do have a couple of questions. Number one is there any way that we can find out, and I know you won't have the answer for this right now, but how do we find out which route is the more frequently used? And then also, once we do designate the route, how do we enforce that?
Oh, good questions. Now, Mr. Hartvey has given partial answer to the first one, and he's he's got the data in his head probably. I don't have, I may have the data that he's reported to me, but this department's been doing surveillance to see which of those routes is the most frequently used. As I recall, but you correct me if I'm wrong, I think the preferred route is Peatone to Old Chicago and then up and over, right?
From the east, yes.
Yeah, so that's where I told them, we have to start looking at waste and we'll have to start looking more at what's out there and how much is there on Old Chicago? How much is there on Riley? How much is there before you get there? How much is there when you come up top, what I call the top of the square, and turn left onto Old Arsenal, from Old Arsenal into the South Arsenal into the landfill entrance. Those are what we have to, those are the areas that we have to look at. Enforcement, I would have the sheriff's department train a couple of deputies. We did that in other counties where there were problems. Mr. Moose can attest to that, where he represented the waste contractor, I represented the county, and we were having problems. And I just said to the county, okay, go make some money. Okay, all right, go make some money, both you and the state patrol. And it's more than the conventional litter statute now. As of January 1 of this year, there is another statute that was enacted by unanimous vote, both in the Illinois House and the Illinois Senate. It's called the Keeker Bill. It's after a gentleman by the name of Jeff Keeker, K-E-I-C-H-E-R. He's from the DeKalb Sycamore. Okay, they were having problems there. Okay, he was hearing from farmers, people that live in the areas, farmers and other people that have farmettes and houses on acreages in the country. There were not, what causes litter sometimes is Mr. Richmond was saying, when they come out of the landfill, they're not cleaned out. They haven't done a clean out, and it's open. It's not targeted anymore. And sometimes that's the worst problem, not going in with a problem. But a lot of times when they go in and the fall and the tarp isn't either secure or it's ripped. Okay, then it starts coming out too. Well, Mr. Keeker's bill said focuses on all of the problems with litter. Says, all right, if a law enforcement officer sees litter coming out, or sees a tear, or sees inadequate tarping, incomplete tarping, and tie down, as we call it, tie down, they pull over the truck. Okay, there's a dual fine, as I recall, or Mr. Guzman. I sent this stuff to you. You correct me wrong, but it's two fines: one for the driver, which is $150; one for the owner of the truck, of 150. So you got 300 right there. Now, many times, not always, a lot of trucks are in good shape. Many times we found at the county I was talking about. By the way, the problem was ended at that county, because you're pulling people over. It's not only the fine, they're losing time. Time in this business is everything, because they can't get to the landfill, dump their load, and go back and get a second load for the day. They like to get two loads per transport trailer. And if they can't do that, that hurts you too. Well, the Keeker bill says the law enforcement officer who pulls them over keeps them there until the problem is addressed. In other words, the law enforcement officer can. Well, they don't have to, but they have the discretion, rather than just write the ticket, give it to the guy and say, okay, go down your road and keep litter. Oh, that was Keeker's problem that he was seeing up there is, well, you're writing tickets, but they're just going down the road, you let them go. And problems continue. So his bill said that he proposed, and again, it passed unanimously, said, no, they stay there if it's a torn tarp until there's a new tarp.
What if it's insufficient tarping? Do they have extra tarps or do they have the sheriff?
Well, that's it. Mr. Moose and Mr. Fallon know more than I, but no, I don't think they have a tarp with them, so they're saying, probably getting on the radio or the phone saying, somebody get here, you know. And it might just be a tie down where they get out, you know, but it takes time.
Sure.
And the other thing I was going to say, I lost my train of thought that we found at the other county is you start pulling trucks over for one thing, and you start looking at tail lights, everything, mud flaps, everything else, you get other violations. So instead of $300 per stop, sometimes it's $500, $600 per stop.
Member, here, do you have a question?
I do, thank you, Chair Hickey. So you mentioned these tickets, and I recently had an occasion to talk to someone in the sheriff's department. Unfortunately, I don't think there's anybody here today. This was a traffic situation where motorists are violating the law. And I said, you know, if you just parked yourself at this corner every day, you could make a lot of money. And he said, no, you really can't, because when we write a ticket, most of the money goes to the state. So they have no incentive to stop a traffic violator. Now, I don't know if it applies on this garbage deal, but it applies for, and I'll just talk about the intersection. It's 135th Street and Route 53 in an unincorporated Romeoville. And they are cutting through this unincorporated subdivision to stop from having to go through the light.
Right.
And wait their turn. And I mean, like, it's not one or two cars. It's like 50 or 100 cars every day, every single day. And they have no incentive to go there and ticket these people.
That may be because, and I'm not sure, I'd have to look at the statute, but it may be because when you said 53, now you're on a state route where they were writing tickets within on just county roads. Could be that the lion's share of the fine went to the county. But
Well, this would be written on unincorporated DuPage Township.
okay,
Mhm.
all right, then there might be an allocation. I haven't looked at the keeper bill in a while, but there might be an allocation.
If it all goes to the state,
Well,
I'm
yeah.
the attitude that I got from this officer, and again, I'm not saying it's correct nor am I saying it's wrong. It just was, they didn't feel it was necessary because they weren't getting any of the money.
Yeah, and if that's
It's
the
a
case,
resource allocation.
there should be an amendment to the keeper bill. Now, one of the primary sponsors of the bill in the Senate, there were two primary sponsors. One of the primary sponsors in the Senate was your Senator Rachel Landfill. So
Well, she's not my personal senator,
No,
but she
but I
was
mean-
my friend,
yeah, so yeah,
and she was our board member.
yeah, I remember when
Oh.
she was a board member, and her, you know, she takes an interest in this, a genuine interest in this stuff, and that may be something to her to go to Mr. Speaker and say, we need to amend this, you know, to say that to provide a equitable share if it doesn't already read that way
Okay.
to the either local county or township.
I'm texting her now.
Okay, so just to sum up, the plan here is that Waste Management is planning on inspecting one time a week and then picking up 2 times a week,
Every 2 weeks,
every 2 weeks, I'm sorry.
which again is pretty ambitious.
Thought that was a lot. And then they'll notify land use so that they can potentially send someone over to check to see if it's been done to satisfaction. Okay, and then as far as the gap test, how does that, if we're talking about a preferred route, how long would that take to install or institute?
How long would gap?
It's a highway department.
Well, probably, kind of correct, I would say several weeks.
Several weeks?
They take care of that. They have some good traffic engineers that have been put in for years and years and years. Waste person.
Okay, and then if we are able to use a prescribed route for the trucks, then would it be, Mr. Harkey, would you be talking to the sheriff, or do you want the landfill committee to ask the sheriff to come in to talk about this, or how would that work?
Whatever we have to determine, maybe someone exactly his office or myself or the staff, maybe sheriff's office. So
Okay. Okay. So, and it sounds like you'll have some answers for us in November, and
Hopefully,
in the meantime, we can all go and look at the keeper bill and await information from Senator.
Mr. Guzman has it and Mr. Harkey, so they could, I gave it to them a few months ago, so when this first came up, so they could give it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Mr. Chen.
So, first off, I appreciate us taking action on something that has been a problem for a while. Utilizing common sense business best practices and getting action taken, that's incredible. I appreciate you doing that. The designated truck route seems to make sense to me. I'm no traffic engineer or anything like that, but maybe the guys at Public Works and Transportation, they might be, clue them in on what you're talking about. And I'm sure Jeff would be more than willing to help assist and make that move forward. So, but thank you for taking some quick action. I'm sure the people around there will be very happy. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else to add, Mr. Harkey? All right. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your time and for the round of thought you put into this. Okay, the next is new business. Any new business? Very none. Announcements, reports by the chair. There are none. Executive session, no need. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Second.
So-
Logan. No,
Okay, motion, Nicholas, second, Logan, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Like. I feel like that.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and